Hello, my darling, and welcome to this podcast episode on the last eclipse season of 2021. How are you? Maybe you know, maybe you don't know, but hopefully this podcast and these podcasts can help you to process and understand a bit about whatever you are feeling and going through at the moment, wherever you are on that spectrum. As always, just take what resonates, leave what doesn't. This is an interpretation, forecast, if you will, channeled information about the energies that are coming through at the moment, just so you can be prepared, really. That's the intention. It's not about creating fear or calling in what you don't want. No fear, no drama. It's actually the total opposite. My intention is just to inform and invite more calm into all of our lives. So just get comfortable, maybe with your favourite cup of tea, herbal tea, and your journal, or continue going about your cleaning, your walk, whatever works for you for listening to a podcast like this. But right now, before we do anything else, I'm just going to invite you to take a couple of deep breaths. And just remember who you are. Just taking a moment to cancel out any noise, anything that's not important beyond the here and now of this moment. And just invite you to remember that we are all connected. And you are rooted deeply into the earth. And you're always connected and receiving energy from her, from all directions, above and below, the east and the west. Okay, so this eclipse season is from November into December, and I've been promising it for this episode for a little while, really, but I knew that it wasn't fully ready until now. And some new pieces of information dropped in for me. So now was the right time. Yeah, this is the second and final eclipse season of 2021. It began with Taurus in November, not long ago. It's November now, right? I don't exist in normal time and calendar life. My time is different, as probably many of you can identify with. But yeah, there was a Taurus almost total lunar eclipse on the 19th of November, and then the next one is in Sagittarius, the 4th of December, which is also a supermoon, and then ending the eclipse season on December the 19th. But then we've also got the solstice, and around December the 24th, there's an energy coming through that's kind of quite chaotic. It's sort of Saturnian, that chaotic energy, versus that of innovation, change, individuality, kind of like that of the planet Uranus, around December the 24th. So even after the end of the eclipse season, we can probably expect something as this wild year comes to an end. But certainly, as always, the impact of eclipses unfolds over the following 6 months afterwards. So I think it's quite nice to have this information so that we can navigate consciously and not kind of get caught off guard, not too surprised if something comes up. And I also feel like there's a lot of support, a really supportive, nice, holding energy for people. Maybe it depends how you describe yourself, but light workers, empaths, those sorts of things. The highly tuned people who are kind of aware, perhaps you use the term awakened, of what's going on right now and why this is happening. And this energy is like, there's kind of like two things happening at the same time. There's this sort of chaos and things breaking apart, but there's also this wonderful opening up. And I feel like the message I'm receiving is that it is a time to really receive. It's a big energy, it's expansive, and yeah, there's at least these two things happening here, where we can observe what's going on while being part of it, but not getting swept away with it. And it's kind of, I don't like to use the term reward, because that's not why we do what we do. We do what we do because we do. But it is a bit like that. It's an affirmation, it's a reward, it's a reminder that we're on the right path, and it's kind of like a thank you. While for some people this feels like Armageddon, for others they're, shining the light and paving the way for people to follow, inspiring people to follow and to change and to kind of wake up. And there seems to be a lot of support in that, which I'll go into as we move through the podcast. So we started with this Taurus eclipse, and this was a great reminder that sometimes we can feel doubtful about what we're doing, who we are, what the hell is going on right now. But Taurus, that eclipse, that moon was trying to show us and remind us that we are needed and we are appreciated. We just needed to be absolutely sure in ourselves who we are and what we're doing. And that eclipse lined up, really allowed us to connect with the Pleiadian star system. And that's a constellation that's very close to my heart. Most of my shamanic teaching, work, training as well, has come from the Andes, and they're very connected with that star system. And that star system is really bringing in the highest potential of love and light. There's almost 1,000 stars in that system, and it calls forth, it supports the best of the best in energy terms. And it was lined up there with Taurus, and for us to really get into our center and to kind of shower us with that love and light energy, to really help us to get strong and centered as we move forward at the beginning of this eclipse season. So going forward, this is a time to really know how to keep your cool and keep grounded. There are more and more people rising up, and these last few weeks of the year are bringing an energy of change, an energy of rebellion. It depends on where you get your news from. Hopefully not mainstream media, but that's certainly what is happening. And when I first tuned in to begin this process for channeling for the eclipse season, I was very aware of some of the things that were going to be coming out, but I could barely believe it. And now, yeah, they have started to come out. And things have also changed really quickly. We have to be prepared for that and to be okay with change. So, yeah, for example, some very strict laws were coming in here in Peru. And within 2 days, they were turned around. I think the word is repealed. They were taken away. this is a safe space, so I don't want to be, getting too much into politics and sides and stuff like that. That's not really the point. It's just about being able to navigate the energies, because I'm sure some people could really go down with that energy and really panic around that. But just as quickly as the energy goes one way, it can go back in the other direction. So just being able to embrace that, really, the electricity of that. So with that, going forward in this eclipse season, there is likely to be a bit of a pinch in the coming months. But if we're strong and we know how to self-inquire and we know how to protect our energy, we're going to be okay. This is just the final bit of the process. There's a lot of light waiting on the other side. But it's not really a case of it waiting on the other side, because this is a process of being the light actively now in the darkest of times. If you can just maintain your light, you're going to be okay. While on the other side of the coin, these eclipses, as with all eclipses, they can take people through a sort of calling out process. So the moment the direction that's taking me in with this channeling is that it's kind of calling out those who are not thinking, or people who are just coming from programming or reactive places, essentially not taking responsibility or claiming their power. They're the people who are going to find this, unfortunately, the most difficult. So it doesn't necessarily have to mean that this energy is going to be causing, rioting in the streets. There have been a lot of peaceful protests taking place. Obviously, it's been kept off the mainstream media, but it has been happening in places that you really wouldn't expect. So it's, this change, this kind of chaos and change, it doesn't have to be big, dramatic, ugly, scary. It can also be peaceful. And we're co-creating this. So what we put out is what we're going to experience. So this energy of liberation that's coming through, there's a lot of opposing energies coming through with these eclipses, which is quite common. But we've got this energy of liberation, but also kind of resistance and pressure, sort of like I'm kind of getting that Mars energy again. And a lot of people don't want to conform. A lot of people have kind of had enough, and that's forcing a lot of people to just kind of really question what's going on right now, and to be fed up with being fed one story, or goalposts being moved and that sort of thing. But just take heart that you're not alone in all of this. If you're feeling that energy at the moment, it's totally fine, but just really know that you're not alone. That's the thing that's really coming through. I've had moments myself where I've just been like, what is happening here? Am I just imagining everything? Really questioning, like, am I supposed to be here? Why is this so hard today? Those sorts of things. And just knowing that you can just step back from it, and there are millions of people out there just like you that are feeling it too. So yeah, there is no kind of going back, and there are challenges ahead, perhaps, but the only way is ahead. And the best thing for all of us is for the truth to come out, and that's okay. We're prepared for that. When you faced your own truths, how can anything else be scary? I'm channeling at the moment, so sometimes it can be a bit hard for me to speak if I keep pausing. That's why, because there's a different kind of voice trying to come through. So as I keep saying, now's the time to really be following your intuition, following your gut, and you will be in the right place at the right time. So yeah, don't be doing anything that you don't want to do. And it might look like, oh, this is the best option to suit everybody else, or this is the easiest option, but in the long run it's not going to pay out well. So just really trusting what's right for you. And I know that that's something that I've been repeating a lot recently, but that's the message that keeps coming through. Okay, so they're moving ahead into the eclipse on the 19th of December. It's bringing in energy of releasing ties with the past. So it's kind of like a nice sort of little cycle. We've been reintroduced to our sovereignty and standing in our power. And, just in time, this perfect design for releasing our ties with the past as we step into a new year and a new energy. So that eclipse will really be inviting us to question everything, express ourselves fully, bring in new connections, create community, and even exploring new perspectives. So there's some really big shifts and changes energy-wise. But especially if you've been on this path for a while, you probably will have noticed that there's a real energy of coming home to yourself, is what it feels like. It's the time to really go into what your truth is. And with so much changing and the rug constantly being pulled from under us, the plan constantly changing, we're thinking about feeling into what's really important. And it's this sort of idea, just an idea of what they're giving to me is, what are we taking into the kingdom of heaven? That might sound a bit dramatic, but it's, it's not intended to be dramatic. I'm just telling you what they're telling me. Like, what are we taking with us? And there may well be some really sudden miracles, an answer, a solution, something that you need just coming out of thin air, and it's kind of like, well done, your work is paying off, hang in there. Here's a little bit of what you need to keep you going on your path. As long as you keep on self-inquiring and asking yourself, these thoughts that I'm having, these feelings that I'm having, whose are they? Why am I having these? Are these actually coming from me? Or if I kind of picked it up from somebody else because I'm empathetic, or, because there's a lot of manipulation going on. And as always, I'm sure we're all aware of this, but it's just the message that's coming through, just remembering that fear in itself, propaganda, division, segregation, all these things are viruses. And we just cannot let them land. We cannot let them take root. So there's an important reminder for giving yourself those energy baths and having regular practices that can keep you into your alignment and sort of essentially keep you energetically clean from all of that, because there's a huge assault of that happening right now. And depending on how your life is set up, some of us are more exposed to it than others, So yeah, a lot of people are not blindly accepting what they've just been told, and hopefully you are strong and resolute in your power, in your position, that you won't be shamed at all or afraid to stand in what you believe, and be open to people asking you things, and them not fully understanding. There's a very strong warrior, divine feminine energy that's going on in the background, and you might feel that. And sometimes when I pick up on that, just the rage is blue heat inside of me, and unless I am conscious of that, it can come out in the wrong ways. So not taking that stuff out on people who don't deserve it, for example, getting frustrated when people just aren't on the same wavelength as you, and that's not really who I am. I've been that person asking the questions, not understanding, thinking that, all that stuff about crystals was nonsense or whatever. I've been that person. So so I will always be that person. Having compassion and understanding for where people are on their journey is really important. So it's possible that early December there might be some more doom mongering, trying to get everybody back into line, and a real strong fear narrative. But just to ignore that and just to stay in your lane, trust your emotions, trust your eternal and internal navigation system. And if you need to get back into your body, I'm often having to get back into my body, being physical, exercise, walking, being in nature, stuff like journaling, deep breathing. Journaling is something I wish I had more time for. I need to make time for it, because that's a very good way to really uncover your truth, and also get rid of a lot of the noise, the detritus that gets caught up in our minds. So maybe you want to try that. Okay, so what else? Yeah, just cutting out all that noise as much as possible. There's just going to be a lot of voices. Just stay in your heart space and not being fooled by any official narratives. We are being backed by forces of nature that are well beyond the will of any agendas, and life itself is just coalescing into a new and mighty expression of all that it can be. So by the time we get around to the December full moon, we'll be in alignment with the galactic center, amazing cosmic galactic center, which is an opportunity opening up to even higher consciousness, going higher, going deeper, going further. And just being open to receiving and expanding, just an ongoing journey of receiving wisdom. So just, if you can, just staying open to that. I had a moment today actually where I noticed how open I was, and I'm just here by myself in the jungle, and getting visions of people I know and what they're doing in their day to day. I was like, on the other side of the world, I'm like, I don't really need to be that expanded, and I'm going to have to rein this in, because I'm going to be visiting London soon, where the energy is very different, to say the least, and I can't have this massive energy everywhere I go. I'll be picking up just so much energy that it's just going to wear me out or make me sick or whatever. So being open to that, but knowing when to rein it in, how to rein it in, and having boundaries there. So it's safe for me to do that now, for example, but in other situations it might not be. And when you're open like that as well, it's possible for other people to see you. So those practices I mentioned earlier, the kind of energy baths or meditating with crystals, all those sorts of things to keep your energy protected, contained, boundaried, could be very beneficial to you now and going forward, but certainly in the next, well, up to 6 months, really. Yeah, so there's a lot of opportunity to meet new parts of yourself, really, and not always difficult parts as well. And it's possible that you might feel tired by that, or completely wired, or totally at ease, and just going with that and allowing that process to take its course. And just being open to any wisdom that wants to come through. Like, I couldn't understand why my body is in so much pain, and then the message came to me, because I've been exercising more than usual. Not that should cause the body pain, but eating very well, blah blah. And then the reason came to me, and it was actually no fault of my own that this is happening. And for a moment, my ego, my mind was like, no, I don't want to kind of believe that message. But this is what this journey is about. It's knowing how to discern the different voices that go on within us, or the different feelings that we perceive, however you receive your information, because we all do it in different ways. So in one way or another, it's possible that you're going to feel quite plugged into the mains at some points or others. So, protect your chakras, your energies, keeping all of that clean, and making space to honor yourself. We're kind of getting a reboot. I've been saying that for a while, but we're getting this reboot, and new information, new strength, everything's new. The whole singing, dancing upgrade is coming through, and I don't even know what that means yet. Not a lot of the stuff that goes on for me that at one time I never thought would be possible, like telepathy, for example, and now it's just, oh yeah, it's part of the course, But I think, well, what can be, what could it be? But we'll have to wait and see, I suppose. But I would suggest that, aiming to receive these gifts with intention so that they don't feel overwhelming or confusing. So being open to the unexpected, but when something weird and wonderful happens, just maybe not getting too overwhelmed. And maybe that's a message for me more than anything, because I did spend a very long time questioning and being fearful around what was going on for me. Obviously, being a small child and seeing and hearing and experiencing beings that other people were not able to perceive was frightening at times. And so that's kind of a message for me as well. If something completely extraordinary happens, not to get too overwhelmed and just to go to that shutdown place of rejection. Okay, remembering that no matter what, you're a free spirit. You don't need to conform. You don't need to be backed into a corner and forced into any decisions. And maybe you already know that. I've always been the kind of person on the outside to, push back, that kind of rebel spirit. And yeah, we're all here just to dance to the beat of our own drum. That's what they're showing me. And there are new ways of doing things coming through, and we all play a part in that. We're all contributing to that change, that paradigm shift that's been taking place for a while now. And just remaining compassionate for others. Not everybody is going to have an awakening in this lifetime. It just might not be their time, and you can't drag people along. And maybe, some people will approach you in ways that are not peaceful and compassionate. I've been writing a lot about this on my social media posts, actually. That we don't have to hide who we are, but we also don't have to like over promote it either. So a lot is being asked of us as well, maybe even to go as far as attacks coming your way, differences of opinions, judgment. But just be patient and remember who you are. Yeah. More and more people are just stepping into the power, and that is going to create shockwaves. Uh, They're telling me about February next year. Just making sure your finances are protected around that time. Yeah, it's about living as freely as you can, because the world is waking up just like never before. And we may have to face fear, criticism, rejection, all of those things that we don't like. But, we're also meeting these really beautiful parts of ourselves, all parts of us, hold magic. And, understanding that when these things come our way, we don't have to be reactive. We can come from a place of compassion. There's more about that on my Instagram, actually, if you want to have a look there. I won't go into it here. There's a reminder for those of us who are kind of working with energy and energy that's beyond the matrix, if you like, that we kind of exist on a different plane, a different timeline, like I was saying at the beginning. Time isn't necessarily feeling all that linear. If anything, it's vertical, but it's also just not strictly that either. And that's why it can be really helpful to have practices and moon ceremonies or journaling or astrology, just to help you navigate. It's like, yeah, the clock and the calendar do exist, but a lot of us are operating on a different frequency. And obviously it's not great to be late for stuff or kind of lost in the the physical 3D reality, because we're operating on a different time zone, essentially. So having those practices in place, or those points that come through from the constellations or the moon movement or whatever, just help us to have a concept of time. And with all of this going on, just remaining in your vibrational frequency if you're around people who are in a different or lower vibrational frequency to you. And again, just remembering that you will have been there too at some point. And I know that you don't want to go back, and you want everybody to kind of experience I don't know, they're saying to me the bliss on this side of the rainbow. I'm not sure if I'd call it bliss all the time, but you get the picture. But you can't drag people along with you. So it's kind of like this balance of toughening up while being compassionate. You can't go back. You're not going to go back to sleep now. Come too far. So just being really aware of being able to identify what's yours and what's not yours, and having those boundaries. And not necessarily, this is quite difficult for me, this concept, but not necessarily understanding. No, that's not what I want to say. Understanding them, not necessarily shunning that company out of fear that you don't want to be pulled into that energy, or like, I don't want to be around that energy. Like, let's say you've got a family that doesn't understand you or your choices, and you might have some fear around being around that, like that you don't want to get pulled back into that. But that might well be a really good test for you, and also you setting a really good example, inspirational example of how you preserve yourself at a higher frequency. You're able to get really meta and observe the old conditioning that you have. It's going really deep there. And there are many things you can do to develop your maintenance of that frequency when you're around any kind of so-called dis-ease, because you're different. And while all this is going on, just being able to trust the unknown, being able to trust that surrendering process. I can't remember who said it, but, when you're driving on a dark road and your headlights on your car only show you, 6 feet in front of you, you can't see the whole journey. And it can be like that, Often we don't have the whole picture, and the ego likes certainty. But we just don't have that right now. But we can trust that we're co-creating a new reality, a new paradigm. So in that, also watching your thoughts and energy, and keep believing in yourself. You have cosmic power. Every single one of us has cosmic power and potential. Some people are awakened to that and some people aren't. You're a cosmic starseed. So trusting what's coming. And you may feel like you keep questioning yourself. You're not sure, like, I've heard a lot of people saying recently, I wish I'd never woken up. I don't understand why I've woken up, and I've worked with plants and all of this, and I'm just observing all this, and all these sheep. This is other people talking, not me. And why? But that's the test in itself. You keep believing, you don't give up. And you can ask for signs too. My mum taught me that when I was a kid, that you could ask for signs. So there's like a certain song I would ask to hear. This was like in the days before mobile phones and stuff like that, and I would just say secretly, telepathically to myself, if there's anyone out there, I want to hear this song. And it'd be like some really random old song that, like, a kid wouldn't listen to. And then it would come up somewhere. Or, there are loads of different ways to ask for signs. If you want more information on that, let me know, and I'll do something. I'll do something about that. It showed me the tarot card of the Fool, and the Fool is really the wise one. in the court, in the king's court, the Fool was the wise one, and was the one that could get close to the king through their jokes and misdemeanors, and depicted on some tarot cards as, the kind of leap of faith. And that's the one I'm seeing, just taking that step off the mountain and just trusting that you're going to be caught, and tell yourself, I trust myself. I trust my path. I trust myself. I trust my path. And sometimes that's easier than others. I know. We're learning to kind of walk across worlds and timelines right now where there are many truths, and we're able to hold many ideas, contradictory ideas at the same time. Okay. So sort of maintaining that attitude of gratitude, and especially when it comes to yourself and who you are, your gifts. Sometimes we can think, well, everyone can do this. And while taking some of these things as extraordinary, this is not from a place of ego that I'm talking about here, but just gratitude, and not taking those things for granted. Don't overlook what you are, inherently good at, and how that could turn into your work. Like, that's what's happened for me in many ways. I was very conditioned with ideas around work, and was really stuck in that system for a long time, teaching in mainstream secondary school for 10 years, plus the training on top of that and other jobs I've had before. So, I can certainly testify that there's energy that moves through us, and it kind of can create itself, a bit like how this podcast started, really. It's another story, but just allowing that energy to move through you. And if your gifts do become your work, it doesn't feel like work anymore. And yes, other things will likely to come up for you to work through, but ultimately it's going to bring you joy and it's going to be inspirational to others. So don't overlook the things that bring you joy, that you are good at, or even if it's really weird and extraordinary, I'm saying that because I shut it down for so long. Whatever you do, you are bringing a new energy. You are allowing that energy to move through you. And many of us have moved away from, what I keep calling old structures. Still got to be grateful for those old structures, because they showed us a lot about what we don't want. They served a purpose. But yeah, you might be really inspiring for other people. It's likely that you will be. So remaining open in that, being vulnerable in that. Okay, being the light and being the truth. So perhaps even being approachable, so that people can ask you about your awakening or your gifts or your talents, being open about that. It was very difficult for me to come out and talk about these things like, that I'm doing now. That was very difficult to be that vulnerable. And also it might trigger people, but that's okay. If you can just always respond truthfully and with openness, it doesn't need to be a battle there. Yeah, everything, keeping in your heart that you are valuable. Again, you are needed authentically. And it's likely that you will have honed your gifts, your talents, who you are and your soul over many lifetimes, and you don't need to feel guilty, don't need to take everything on. This has come up quite a few times actually. So as powerful as you are and as unique as your journey is, everybody else is also powerful and on their journey. So you don't need to rob anybody of that experience, of an experience, to grow, to see their own strength, their own resilience. You have medicine too, just by being you and being true to yourself. It's not about being selfish or, just not helping other people out. It's not what it's about. But sometimes we have to make tough decisions. Or our authentic self, we show up as our authentic self. Not everybody will agree with it, but we can't rob them of that opportunity to grow as much as robbing ourselves of having that opportunity to express ourselves fully and authentically, because we all have a part to play in this. There's going to be a lot of energy coming through in support of this, and that might, it depends on how you want to look at it, is how you will experience it. A lot is likely to change and many beliefs will be transformed, and potentially this could cause chaos. So the most important thing is just remembering who you are and remembering how to stand strong. There are going to be people who are not prepared, and you don't have to rescue them. You just have to be that lighthouse. That's the image they give me for that. So just, all you can do is keep on top of your self-care, be self-aware, don't get overwhelmed, keep those boundaries in place. And, you might have to ask yourself, is this the best use of my energy? Or is there an unhelpful pattern here? And that's something I always have to tap into, especially as I'm out there now doing this work. And a lot of people contact me a lot of the time before they've self-inquired. You know, they're looking for answers from me, but I don't know. I don't know what the right answer is for another person. Nobody can ever tell another person what the right answer is. And sometimes I have to say, like, today I can't be doing that. I can't be available for an hour-long conversation going around in circles. You go away and do your practices and self-inquire, and we'll talk when you've kind of come to a bit more of a grounded place. But you can see me over there. I'm that lighthouse. I'm there. I'm calling you in. But you've got to find the answers yourself, because you have them. You have them. So I think that kind of about rounds it up. Is that the right word? Rounds it up? To get back more into my human side now. So you can get in touch on social media or email me. If you want to make a donation, I'd be very grateful. I've also got ceremonies coming up for the moon to help you feel grounded and, clearing up energy and setting intentions. So the moon ceremonies go into a lot more depth for that moment in terms of channeling astrology and planet transits, that kind of thing. There's a lot of information out about that, and I'll put it all in the show notes. I've also got Patreon. I've also got some availability for one-to-one sessions. I'm also a hypnotherapist, so I've got some one-to-one sessions we can do online. Over in the UK, I've got some cacao ceremonies and some bits and pieces. You can check the schedule on Eventbrite or contact me. But you're awake. You're awake now. Starseed, empath, light worker, however you identify. And there's no going back. We're well past halfway. We've, the light has already infiltrated to such a point that, we've won. I don't like that terminology, but I haven't got other words for it. So just taking those deep breaths. If things get rocky, remember who the fuck you are. You are supported. There are millions of us. All you have to do is look up into that night sky, up at those stars. They've all got our backs. And thank you so much for listening. Thank you so much for all of your lovely messages on social media. Thank you for coming to the ceremonies. Thank you so much to my gorgeous, generous, open-hearted Patreons. I'm so grateful for you. And I'm grateful that I can do this work and we can all explore our journeys together and as individuals. It's always good to hear about what's going on for all of you. All the work that you do for yourself does heal the collective, and just being you is enough. So thank you. So take really good care of yourself. Make sure that you know how to keep your balance. Remember that we're all brothers and sisters. There's no need for any division or hate or separation based on people's decisions or standpoints. That is the last thing that we want right now. So just protect yourself and take care of each other as you walk the talk. And that's all you need to do to inspire others. You don't have to try any harder than that. So I'm Nancy, Forever Alquimia. I'll see you soon. And just remember always who you are. Lots of love.